Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
I want to take responsibility for my actions. I know what I did. I know what I'm supposed to do. No, I'm allowed not to do, and I still made that decision.
Well, this morning, the fastest woman in America is apologizing after she was suspended for using marijuana. 21-year-old Sha'Carri Richardson captivated millions last month after her stunning finish at the U.S. Olympic track and field trials in Oregon. She was headed to Tokyo as a favorite. But this morning, the track star's path to the Tokyo Olympics remains uncertain. Joining us now live, we have Doug Eldridge, founder of the DLE agency and Achilles PR. Good morning, Doug. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's begin with what caused all of this. Sha'Carri testing positive for marijuana. She's admitted, we just heard, to using it in Oregon, where the substance, though, is legal. It's banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency on race days. Now, what can we make of all this?
Sure. So in simplest form, she failed a drug test. She tested positive for marijuana. It is legal in 17 states, including Oregon, where she rendered the test, but is deemed illegal as it relates to competition through WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and USADA, the U.S. division, is a signatory to that. What it means is really this. There are two chief categories of drugs: performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs, which we think of like anabolic steroids and like either muscle building or endurance building. And then the second category is substances of abuse, and that's where marijuana falls in. Nobody's going to claim that smoking marijuana is going to give Sha'Carri any type of competitive advantage. And so because it fell in the latter category, the substances of abuse, not performance enhancing, she wasn't subject to the typical 3-month suspension. She got 30 days. It wasn't performance enhancing, wasn't deemed an in-competition test, which is important, and she completed a counseling program. So now it's a 30-day suspension as opposed to 3 months.
Okay, this is also prompting a lot of discussion on whether marijuana should be a banned substance. What's your take on that?
You know, I'm either the perfect person or the worst person to ask. Let me share with you what my clients often say, especially those that are at the latter end of their careers, be it large NFL offensive linemen or track and field athletes, cyclists, etc. A lot of them say, Doug, there are many days that it hurts to get out of bed. And if I do, everything does hurt. So why wasn't something like marijuana or CBD, et cetera, available to us while we were competing, so we didn't have a growing dependency on some of these highly addictive opioids for pain management? Not performance improvement, pain management. So I think if nothing else in the bigger picture, Sha'Carri is really going to serve it as a conversation starter to advance the discussion on the merits or lack thereof of using marijuana as a pain management mechanism throughout the course of the career. If the overall objective is physical and mental health of the athletes, then it's certainly something to consider. I'm not pushing it or advocating it by any measure, but I'm also not saber-rattling and doing social media hot takes and demanding my pound of flesh. As the rules are currently written, she violated the rules. She owned up to it. She was proactive. She's already engaged in the process. She's going to have to serve that penalty, which will knock her out of the individual 100, but she is in contention to be selected for the relay because you can pull 6 people for that.
Okay, and that's where I think this gets a little confusing, because someone's saying, I'm questioning, okay, so she can't run in this one race, but she could in the other. So that is confusing. How does it work?
Simple. It's all about calendar. When does the 30-day start? When does it end? Because her results were invalidated from the Olympic trials, remember, she came away as really the breakaway star, equal parts Gail Devers and FloJo, Florence Griffith-Joyner, in terms of her flash and dash, if you will. Unquestionably the fastest American woman, probably the fastest in the world. She's run the second fastest time. So because of the timing of the 30-day suspension, because they invalidated her win at U.S. Olympic trials, and that's how we determine who goes in individual events, she's scratched from the women's 100. But for the 4-person relay, they actually select 6 athletes. So you have alternates. Sometimes your alternates will run in the earlier rounds. So because of when the suspension stops and the actual 4x100 begins in the Olympics, she is eligible for the 4x100. So, all of this is going to come down to USATF. I think there's going to be mounting pressure to select her, not only because of her performance, but because of her personality, because of the backstory, because of the relatability of losing her biological mother, because of the way she's handled it thus far. And obviously, it doesn't hurt the fact that she's absolutely going to add some weight behind the notion of the medal count.
When do you think they would make that decision?
Sooner rather than later. I mean, the Olympics, opening ceremony is 3 weeks from yesterday, so we're clearly inside of a month, and before you know it, weeks are going to tick down to days and eventually hours. I would guess that the decision's already been made at this point, literally or figuratively. It's just a question of when it's announced. Obviously, it's up to Sha'Carri to walk the line and make sure that no subsequent tests or any types of wrongdoing don't come to the fore. but I would venture a guess to say that she's more than learned her lesson. This is going to be incredibly costly. You got to remember, we equate two athletic titles as really globally recognizable: the heavyweight champ of the world and the world's fastest man, or in this case, world's fastest woman. So coming away as an Olympic champion in the 100-meter, the fastest person on the earth, that's a title you carry for the rest of your life. And with it, the dollars and designation that really sets you apart. So this is really a costly mistake in the literal and figurative sense for Sha'Carri, but I do believe bigger things are ahead. She's only 21 years old. She has a dynamic personality, and her performance speaks for itself. So she's got great things ahead, hopefully.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, breaking everything down for us, giving us more insight into this. We appreciate it. Doug Eldridge.
Hey, thanks for having me.